where it is sunny outside. The sun is here. This is a map of the United States behind me, which I will talk about in a minute. So I'm here for my, what now seems to be a weekly thing. I hope to actually, at some point, do it more often, at least twice a week, if not even more than that. I happily do this every day, frankly. I quite enjoy it. And I'm here to look at some beginner basic examples about using data in a project. And a computational project, a project that involves programming. Specifically, I'm going to look at web programming, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, using a library called p5.js.org, and I'm going to go through a series of examples. So before I get started, let me explain a couple things. Number one, if you happen to be actually tuning in live, could you please let me know if the sound quality is okay? If this font size is okay. It looks like I should actually make that font size for the code a little bit bigger, which I'm going to do right now. Say 32. If this font size is okay, if you can still hear me when I'm over here, and if you can read this word hello rather clearly. So if you're watching and you're in the chat, please let me know just if everything is okay so then I can proceed. Then, now the other thing that I'm going to say is this is a live stream. I'm going to do this for about 2 hours, I think, unless I run screaming out of here. I'll happily take questions and kind of improvise stuff and just see how it goes. And during the stream, I'm also going to hit record to pull out pieces that I hope will be standalone little video lesson chunks. So see, look, I totally forgot to press the button, and I was talking and you weren't seeing me. And you're saying sound is fine, hello is readable, all good. There are some people here. Also, I wouldn't mind, I'm kind of interested in getting more viewers just to sort of test, not because, I am kind of probably a very vain person who just wants attention, but, and I just can't admit that, but my other reason for this is I'd like to sort of test this out more and make this more interactive with questions and dialogue. I'm really just at the beginning of this as far as I'm concerned and would like to, so I think having a few more people might be helpful. So if you know somebody that you want to email or send a message to join, that's great too, if you have a minute to do that. And then if you're watching this archived at some point, I don't know, thank you. So the first thing that I'll talk about before I kind of really get going, and this is going to help me and maybe I'll get some advice from you guys, is my kind of plan here. So I made a list of kind of what I'm planning to do, and this is basically my list. So the first thing I want to cover is just a kind of basic okay, data, that's something. What is that something? And so what kind of formats are there? What are some data sources? What are the pitfalls? What's the kind of overall picture here? So I just want to kind of talk through. Then I'm mostly going to focus on a data format known as JSON in these particular videos. So I want to start with just what is JSON, what is the syntax of JSON, and how do you have a local file that has some data in it that you load and display something based on that data. Once we work with the local file, then I'm going to look at, instead of a local file, it could have a URL, so it could be pulling data from somewhere else. And once you've done that, that URL could actually be part of an API query. So what's an API? What does that mean? How do APIs work? How do you sign up for them? Do you have to authenticate? And then so I want to look at a few examples. And I'm not looking to be particularly clever here. I think I want to just look at kind of I don't know what I'm looking for, but some kind of standard, sort of popular or sort of obvious. What are some obvious APIs to look at? My list here is Open Weather Map. WordNik is maybe not so obvious, but I have a personal love for WordNik. The New York Times API, maybe some sort of image API like Instagram, Flickr, or Google Image Search. At some point I want to talk about word counting and text analysis, because I'm interested in that. I want to talk about loading data from a Google spreadsheet, which is a really quick way that you can get data input from other people, and then saving data with something known as parse. So that's my list. I'm definitely not going to get to all this today. I'll be pleased if I get up to Open Weather Map today, and then I'm going to have to come back likely next Thursday until I get a different kind of schedule where I can just do this all the time. Is anybody listening to me? I think you might be. Okay, I zoomed in. So if you have any feedback on that or any thoughts, there are 7 of you out there, and I appreciate all 7 of you. Each one of you individually, I feel you in my heart and soul watching. And if you have any feedback on that list, let me know. Otherwise, I'm kind of going to just get started. I'm going to get myself organized over here. I'm looking around. I have a pen. I'm over here now. You guys can read this, really, everything's fine. And now, so I have to think about how to start. The one thing about this I have to admit is I could do a better job of like preparing. I'm just going to improvise. Honestly, this first video is hard to do because I feel like honestly I should prepare like something of more like a slide presentation to talk about this. But I'm just going to ramble and pull up things in a browser and draw pictures on a whiteboard. That's how I do it. I have no other way. I don't know how to do it any other way. Okay, welcome everybody. I'm just checking to see if I have any messages from anybody. In the chat, not so much. Okay, I can see myself making weird facial expressions. And here we go. Okay, so let me get started here. Okay, I'm thinking. So the first thing I'm going to do, I think what I'm going to use is this as my starting example. I love this project. Can anybody tell me if I'm pronouncing Fernanda Villegas correctly? Martin Wattenberg and Fernanda Villegas. This is their project. Anybody know if I'm pronouncing it correctly? Let me know in the chat. Oh, it says more comments below. I got to click. Yes, that's a great question. Someone asked, I'd like to know about keeping API keys private. I would definitely like to touch on that at some point. So remind me again next time, or I'll try to like keep that in mind. I should actually, let me add that to my, I know how to remember this. If I open this up and something about keeping API keys private. To be honest, the way that I'm going to be doing things, you can't keep them private. You kind of need, I mean, I'm sure there's something I'm not thinking of, but you mostly need server-side programming for that. So that's a great topic for another video in my infinite list of videos that I hope to make someday. Okay. Well, I wonder how, yeah, okay. Well, the reason why you can't keep an API key so private is that if your web page is online and your API key is in your JavaScript code, it's there. So you can pull the API key from somewhere else that's not just viewable in the source of the page, but that generally involves having some control over the server. That's kind of a bit beyond the scope of what I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to just drink a little water. Okay, I guess got to get started because I could ramble about what I'm doing, but I should really just do the thing that I'm doing. Oh, the sun went away. Okay. Is it weird to leave this wind map thing behind me when I start? All right, I'm just gonna, I don't know what this video, I might do this a couple times. We'll see. Oh, but why would you want to keep it private? I love to have these questions. So why you would want to keep it private is if it's your API key and the API only allows you to have 100 queries per day, and you don't want other people to use your API key for nefarious purposes. But usually something you can do other things like tie the API key to only be allowed to be used from a particular web domain, which is your domain. So again, these are great questions, and I also I don't know if I'm really an expert in this topic. So okay, but I'm gonna get started, and you guys can talk about this in the chat. That's great. Okay. Oh, it's hot in here. That's fine. Hello. So I'm starting a new set of videos today, and I'm very excited about this topic of working with data in a program. In a program written in JavaScript, using the p5.js library. I'm gonna start over. My phone is buzzing. No, you're not, no derailing. Okay, here we go. Let's try this again. Hello, I'm starting a new section of videos today all about working with data. I have this project behind me. It's called The Wind Map by Fernanda Villegas and Martin Wattenberg. I will include a link to this project in the video description. I feel like this is a nice example of something that you can do with data. Now, I could probably show you 100 examples, but I'm really going to get to the how-to part. But at least wanted to start with something to see here. Here is a web page that is showing you a dynamic animation. Those of you who are sorry, I've lost my train of thought, and I'm just gonna do this one more time. I swear I'm gonna stop stopping and starting. I kind of want to open the window. for some air. Okay. Hello, so this is the first of what I hope will be a series of probably many videos about working with data in JavaScript, in particular using this p5.js framework that a lot of my videos are exploring, but really this topic is much more general than just p5.js and would apply to anything that you're doing with data and programming. So this is kind of like a classic example that I love, the wind map by Fernanda Villegas and Martin Wattenberg. This is a project where they've read all of this data that probably, I'm speculating, but let's speculate here. I'm sure the data has a whole lot of latitude and longitudes all over the continental United States, and some information about at all of those latitudes and longitudes, there's a particular amount of wind. The wind is going in a certain direction, and the wind has a given speed. Take all that data, map it to like white lines that are moving in that direction with maybe a thickness associated with the speed, and you get this beautiful result. And there's lots more to this project. I'll put a link below and encourage you to explore it on your own. But what I would like to do, and I would love to show you all of my favorite projects that involve data, but that's not what these videos are going to be about. They're really going to be about the nuts and bolts of how do you make stuff like this. So what kind of formats are there that data can come in? How do you deal with those different formats? How do you pull data live in real time from something called an API? What is an API? How do you sort of practice? How do you take small steps one at a time to get towards making a project that has a sort of order of complexity like this? So in this first video, what I'm hoping to do is I'm going to move over here to the whiteboard in a second and just kind of make a list of the kinds of formats that data can come in, and then click through a few examples to show you. Then at the end of this video, I'll stop, and then in the next video, we'll start actually writing some code. That's my plan. I'm sticking to it. Okay, so first of all, I don't know what format the data came in, but let's mention something you might be familiar with. Have you ever had, I don't know whether this makes you happy or sad, but how much time in your life do you spend with spreadsheets? I don't know. I don't know how I feel about spreadsheets. But spreadsheets is a really nice way of thinking about data. I just realized, I went in a different direction, but it's fine. So for example, I'm going to open up a link here. This is a Google spreadsheet, a Google sheet, right? And you can see here that there is data here. There is a column called timestamp, there's a column called label, there is a column called number. So all of this data is there. It's in some standardized format, a grid, rows and columns. It's organized, and it's like legible. And there's a question here, like, is data designed for you, the human being, to read, or is it designed for the computer to read? And you could say here that a spreadsheet is a little bit of both, right? This is sort of visualized in a sense. There's like colors and boxes. I'm really off on some tangent here, but I don't care. There's colors and boxes and things, and this is sort of presented nicely to us. But a spreadsheet, a CSV, which a CSV is a certain kind of format, is also something that can look like this. Screw it, I'm starting over. That was only 3 minutes. You poor people on the live stream. I just want to be more succinct here, and this is like, as soon as I get to writing the code, I'm going to be just like moving forward here. But I have to try this one again because I'm not sure that I wanted to wander into going into this spreadsheet thing. Okay, this is why I haven't had this problem live streaming in a while. This is what I used to do when I would like not live stream them. I would just like stop and start the video like 15 times. With a live stream, I feel like I'm just gonna go, but you guys are. But I'm gonna make this happen now anyway. Okay, let me get back to here. I have this open. I'm gonna get into here. I'm gonna have this ready to go. Okay, and one thing, I just realized I wanted to have things more ready to go here. And I think that's going to help if I'm not like opening things during talking about this video. Okay. Okay. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. Here we go. I'm going to do this again. One more time with feeling. Okay. Hello and welcome. I am starting a new series of videos all about working with data. Working with data in JavaScript, in particular using the p5.js JavaScript framework. But of course, this topic is much bigger than any one library or framework or programming language. It's really about there's this world out there and there's lots of stuff. You could get that stuff and use it in a project, and why might you want to do that, and what kinds of results can you get with that? And really, I want to focus on how to do that. So what I have here is a kind of like quick demonstration. I would love to just sit here and show you like 100 amazing and interesting projects made with data on the web, but I'm just going to show you one, which is a particular, I think, relates to kind of what the kinds of things I'm hoping to demonstrate in these videos is this project called the Wind Map. It's by Fernanda Villegas and Martin Wattenberg. And you can see here there is a map of the United States. Are these white streaks flowing across the map. And you could imagine there's some data, underlying data, latitudes and longitudes, wind speeds, wind direction. And somehow that data is being read, and then the data is being interpreted and manifested through drawing. So thicker white lines for higher wind speed, lines in a particular direction for a particular wind direction. And so what are the building blocks of a project like this? What are all the pieces? How do you read the data? How do you cycle through the data? How do you draw with the data? And what if the data comes from this thing called an API, which requires you to like log in and have like a secret key and all this horribly scary, strange stuff? I would like to make this seem like a very easy and welcoming, friendly thing for you to be able to do. That's my goal here. So in this first video, what I want to do is make a list of the kinds of ways you might find data. And I've got a few like examples over here, but I think just to get away from the computer for a second, I'm going to move over here. Hello again. So let's think about this question. So first of all, I've got to go back to the computer again. Let's say you're interested in a particular kind of thing. Like you like flowers. Flowers, that's like your thing. Oh boy, I really should have planned for this in advance. But let's say flowers is your thing. So you might Google flowers, and then you're going to get this, you're going to get all this commercial stuff trying to sell you flowers. Well, I really just want to know how to grow flowers. I'm really off topic. I don't care. How to grow beautiful flowers. Okay, whatever. So, I could go here and be like, oh, look, here's this website about flower gardens, and I want to get some data about flowers. I'm not really getting anywhere. But I could be a much better Googler, and I could say flower data base. No, not to forget database. Flower data. So now, flower data sets. Now I'm getting somewhere. The point of what I'm doing is just to be sort of random here. This will happen to you. You have an interest in a piece of kind of data, you're Googling around, you're finding things. What are you going to find? So first of all, I think there's two approaches to a project. One is you actually have an interest and you're looking for a particular kind of data. But right now you might say to yourself, I'll do that later. I'm just going to use some existing examples of data sets that are out there that I am going to show you how to do. But there is a reason for talking about this. So you're going to come across and you're going to see a lot of things. So first of all, the data could come in a variety of formats. Here's a list of some formats that you might see. CSV, what is that? XML, what is that? JSON, what is that? You might just find a text file. You might just find a PDF. Or you might actually not find any of these formats, but you see the data right there on the web page. I mean, that data is there. How do you get access to that if it's not in one of these quote unquote formats? And then there's this sort of like side discussion of like, what if you see this word API? So what you're looking for when working with data is you want to find somebody on the internet who says, I have this data, it's about flowers, and I would like you to have it. Please enjoy it. And I've prepared it for you with examples and documentation to make it easy for you. And a particular keyword in the context of what we're looking for is you might be looking for data of the format JSON. The reason why you might be looking for this is JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. That might be convenient, right? Because I have spent many a day making videos about JavaScript object notation. Because I could say, here's a flower, and its name is sunflower, and its color is like, I don't want to use the, it's fine, whatever, you get the idea. I could put like a variable for its color, I could have a variable for, this is, I went off, I was thinking about flowers and I lost my train of thought, but so this is JavaScript object notation. It's how you write objects into your code. It turns out that this data format is exactly the same as this. Now there's a little bit of nuance there of some slight differences in kind of, but if you find data that's been prepared, it's like somebody said, oh, are you programming in JavaScript? Would you like data made for you to use? Here it is. So this is an ideal scenario. You're happy if you find data in this JavaScript object notation. So, and the next video I'm going to make is essentially all about what that is and the actual syntax. Now, another format of data that you might find very intuitive and familiar to work with is this format known as CSV. Now, CSV is a particular kind of a larger format, which I really mean tabular data. So what does it mean for data to be in a table? You know, you have, name, age, gender. Dan, 42, male. Okay, now that's how old I am. Let's just get that out there on the internet. I'm youthful at heart, though. And then there's some other data there. I could put my phone number and I could say my phone number and like make this video even more embarrassing. But so you're familiar with this probably. Like here is, whoops, that's the wrong thing I was going to open. Like Google Docs. That's tabular data. And in fact, you can have a Google spreadsheet and access that Google spreadsheet in your JavaScript program. And in fact, you can tie that to a Google form. So this is a topic that I want to explore. The reason why I'm mentioning CSV as a particular format is that what a kind of raw format for tabular data is to have all of the cells separated by commas. So you can see an example of this. Here is a table, comma separated values, the first row being the header, X, Y diameter name, the next row being some values, the next row being some values. And in fact, this is P5 sketch that kind of loads that and using the data puts the things on the screen. So at some point I'll demonstrate that in more detail in a particular video dedicated to just CSV. There's lots of CSV data out there. Here's one that I think is worth kind of interesting to look at. Actually, let me right here. This is City Bike data. City Bike is a bike sharing system in New York City, and they have all of the trip data. So the date, the latitude, the longitude, the address, where it was picked up, the time. Is a huge data set. How would you load that data set, read through that data set, maybe draw lines of people riding their bikes all over the map of New York City? So this is the kind of thing that I want to explore in these sets of videos. So that's really what I've got here with CSV data and JSON data. Now XML is another standardized format for data. These three up here are really like standardized format. What I mean by standardized format is you, the human being, want to look at data in a nice presented way. Like if you're interested in movies, I don't know why I'm plugging some IMDb here, but you could go to this website and be like, oh, look at all this data here, and I can see it, and I can soak it in, and I can find the movie that I'm interested in, and yay. But this is not useful for a computer to read. It's really, this is designed visually for you to look at with your eyes, and you could make the same argument that this Google Doc has actually done that as well, with like column headings and colors and like lines of grids, all that sort of stuff. But the point of these data formats, if I come back over here, is that these are all designed for computers to read. There's commas separating everything. There's this programming syntax that has kind of got curly brackets and semicolons and quotes and commas. So it's this standardized format. So that's sort of, if you can find a standardized format, that's a good thing. P5 has a particular set of functions that allow you to read JSON data very easily, read CSV data very easily, read XML data in a slightly trickier way, but it works. But you might also be in a scenario at some point where you just found the data not in a format that's meant for a computer to read. Like there's just a text file with a lot of stuff in it, or there's just a web page and it's all there, but it's like a mess and it's not in a standard format, or some PDF document. So at some point I would like to make one video to sort of talk about how you might deal with some scenarios like that if you find a particular piece of data online, but it's not sort of handed to you in this nice, friendly JSON way. And then, of course, there's this question of API. Now, if you find, if you have a fixed data set, just sort of like this is the data, it might come as a file. But if there's a huge data set or a data set that's changing over time, like Twitter is a data set that's changing over time because people are posting to it continuously. You know, all the articles that appeared in the New York Times in 1950, that's not really changing over time. I don't think, unless we could do time travel. But anyway, you could download that and have that. So an API stands for Application Programming Interface, meaning you're writing an application, somebody else has an application, that other person says like, oh, I would love for your application to talk to mine, so I'm gonna make an interface for those two things to talk to each other, and that interface might be sending data in one of these formats back and forth. So the tricky thing is, if just to use the New York Times as an example, the New York Times has an API. It's very nice of them. They're like, hey, you know what? We have this newspaper and all this stuff, and why don't you read it like a human being, or why doesn't your computer program read it? And we'll make it easier by giving it to you in an API. But you've got to log in, get an account, get a secret key, figure out how to query the API. How do you say, I want the articles from this year, or from that have this certain keyword in them? And so that's the kind of thing we're going to do. And just to like run through a few examples of that, like, for example, here, if I'm interested in flowers, this is me querying the New York Times article search. I didn't try these examples to see if they worked. Let me try a different one. Oh, let's try this one. I'm going to search for the word computer. This is very sad. My internet. I'm making a video. I'll have to go look at why the New York Times one didn't work. But one of the APIs that I'm going to spend some time showing you is an API called WordNick. Let me move this over here, where you can see here I've put in the word apple, and I've clicked this button called examples, and WordNick is giving me back a set of example sentences that have the word apple in it. This is Google image search, which I've passed it the word apple, and I'm getting some, you know, I like flowers better. Let's go back to flower. And you can see I'm getting a whole bunch of flower images. So this API, meaning Application Programming Interface, Google has a server, I have a program. Those two programs are talking to each other because Google has this API built. But the point is, I can't just download all of Google's data as like a big CSV. I've got to query that API. So how does that work? Instagram's another one. Flower, whoops. Let's just turn that off. I have to think, Google Sheets we talked about. Okay, so that's kind of the basic. I don't know how well this went. You should, anybody, it's too late now because you've already watched this video if you're watching it now. But I'm going to get into the next video that I'm going to make is only really going to be about what is the JSON format, how does it work, how do you pull the data format of the JSON into your project and do something with it. So that's what I'm going to do in a few short minutes in the next video. Thanks for watching and see you soon. Okay. Wait, where's the stop button? There it is. All right, everyone. Okay, there's 17 people here watching. You guys, I don't know if anyone's, so I don't know if that was useful. I might, you guys can give me some feedback on that. I don't like these. I have really a lot of trouble with these kind of like overview type things, which I felt like would be a useful thing to do. And I have an easier time with let's actually just look at a particular example and solve one particular kind of problem. But if you have some feedback for me or some questions, I'm going to take a minute to get set up to actually do, I'm going to look at my list here. Where's my list of videos that I'm making? Data videos. So what I did was that one. Intro to data, CSV, JSON, XML, APIs, what? And now I'm going to do what is JSON and having JSON in a local file. The question is asked, is it possible to connect and query SQL databases? It certainly is, but again, I probably should make this a bit more explicit, but I'm really focusing on client-side programming only, and you're going to really have to, if you have your own SQL database, you're going to have to configure that on your own server and set that up so that you can query it from the JavaScript side. So essentially, when I'm querying an API, I'm essentially querying somebody else's database, but they've written the server-side program to send the data to me. And I do want to cover at some point in a video a service called parse.com, which you can use for free, although it's also a paid service, which allows you to save data to a server and retrieve it later, which is certainly very useful in a lot of projects without you having to make your own server, which is useful. Okay, thank you. This was nice that somebody told me that was good, because I really didn't feel like it was. Basic enough for most people who have a rudimentary interest in P5. Thank you for that feedback. Okay, so what I'm going to do is get a P5 sketch set up. I really should have, clearly I should have tried that New York Times example. I wonder why it wasn't working. Let me just look real quick. Bring the browser back here and open the console. You know what? I had sample key in there. That's why. You know, usually the sample key works. I probably used the sample key too many times. Or I wonder if I actually, yeah. Oh, you know. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about that now. I'll fix that later. So I can close all these, I think, for now. I probably should leave them open. Oh, I want to leave this Corpora thing open, which I will talk about. This is a nice repository that I think is worth talking about. And I've got P5 open now with this sketch running. And great. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I got to turn this camera back on and get started. Here we go. I'm going to go on to my next section, which is just what is JSON and working with a local JSON file. I know I'm not in the frame right now. I'm going to start over there and talk about that. And here we go. Wait, one thing I want to check is that the battery in the, I'm a little bit low. I've kind of got a low battery situation going on. I think I better fix that. So hold on a second, everyone. You can hear. I'll be in the frame changing my battery. I have a serious low battery problem in my own brain right now, but what I mean is this thing. So my audio is going to cut out in 1 second. Can you hear me again? I think you can hear me again, and I have a full battery. Okay, excellent. And here we go. Let me put the camera back over here. Okay, and I'm about to start recording again. I just need to find this whiteboard marker, and where's the eraser? Whiteboard eraser. Oh, there it is. Okay, everything's fine. Here we go. Okay, so in this particular video, I want to cover JSON. What is JSON? How does it work? How do you make a JSON file and load that file into a JavaScript thing? Okay, I get a few like mulligans with the beginnings of these videos. Okay. Okay, I'd like to do a little dance at the beginning of this video. In this video, I am planning to talk about JSON exclusively. What is this data format JSON? What does it look like? What does it mean? And if you happen to have data in a JSON format, how could you use that data in a program that you're writing, something that runs in the web browser in JavaScript using the p5.js library? Okay, so I have some information that I talked about in the previous video. If you watched that previous video, by the way, thank you. That was kind of you. So let's say the scenario that I'm posing here. So interesting. You're interested in flowers, and you looked all over the internet. You couldn't find any information about flowers, but you have this book all about flowers. Here's something you could actually do. Novel concept. You could just type the data yourself into a file to use in your program. So let's first think about how that might work. So actually, even before I start doing anything over here, let's do that just even in our code, right? So you know how to program, or at least I do. I think you do, if you've been watching the videos, hopefully, because I don't know if I'm doing a good job or not. But you might say to yourself like, I am going to make this object called flowers, and it's going to have a name. I'm just going to say it's a flower. It's going to have a name like sunflower, and it's going to have a color, which is, I always want to do color, and then I realize there's a problem. I should just admit that there's a problem here. So what I started doing, by the way, was I want to use the p5.js color function, which is so nice because I could make a nice yellow color, which yellow is red and green, I think. But that's not going to work up here. The color function is only available once I'm actually in setup, once the page has loaded. So I'm going to make that global variable, and I'm going to make my object here. Sorry. So name, sunflower, color is, and let's not name it color because that's a keyword. Let's name it COL is color. How do you make yellow? Red and green? I think that's right. How about like some red and a little bit more green and, right? So I've now, whoops, and there's no semicolon there. So I've now made data. I've made an object, a JavaScript object. It has data in it. So I could add all sorts of other data, like what's the average height of a sunflower, and what season do sunflowers grow, and what's the most popular latitude, longitude in the world where sunflowers appear. I could keep adding all that data as these key value pairs, and I could do something like say like, now I'm going to draw a black background, and then I'm going to say fill by the flower's color, and I'm going to draw text on the screen with the flower's name at pixel value 10, 50, and I could say create canvas 400, 400. So if I were to run this sketch, we could see, look at that. I've got my text called yellow sunflower. I have the yellow sunflower text right there on the screen. So this is working with data. This is actually working with data in JavaScript object notation, because that's a JavaScript object and the notation is the syntax of JavaScript. So actually working with JSON data is exactly what you already know how to do if you've been programming in JavaScript. So I want to come back over here and then put our brains back in this scenario. So you have your encyclopedia of flowers and you're starting to put all the data into a data file. So one of the pitfalls of this here is this works, but it's not so great. Like, what if I had like 1,000 different flowers or huge amounts of data? I wouldn't want to have all of that just in my code. I want that to be somewhere else. Eventually I might want that to be served up by this like web server somewhere that's an API that's just sending everybody in the world data about flowers, because wouldn't that be nice? But here at this moment, I'm just using it for myself. The thing that I would want to do is put the data in a separate file. So let's look at how we might do that. Now there's one thing that's different, which is that, and somebody correct me on the internet if I'm wrong about this, but one thing that you need to do once you move the data to a separate file, first of all, you need to create a file, and I'm going to call it like flower.json. So our sketch files have been called sketch.js because they're JavaScript files, files with JavaScript code in them. Now I'm making a new file. Its extension is JSON because it's JSON data, but this is a data file. Important difference. There's no code in here. It might have the same syntax as this, but there's nothing to execute. There's no code to run in there. It's just information that can be loaded into an object. The point is, this is no longer going to be written directly here. Flower is somehow going to equal load this particular file. So the difference is there's no variable name in this file. It's just an object. So the file starts with a curly bracket, ends with a curly bracket, and then the other thing that's important is, if you notice, name is a string, so the name is the property of flower, and its value is sunflower, a string in quotes. But in the JSON file, you'll want these property names to also be in quotes. So you'll see that what I want to do is say name sunflower, And the other thing that I can't do, right, I did this in my program, is I executed the color function here, but I could do something different. Like I could say its red value is 255, its green value, is like 200, and its blue value is 0. So notice the syntax here. It's an object, and this should be in quotes. It's a bunch of key value pairs. Property name, value. So a flower has a name, it's sunflower. A flower has a red value, it's 255. All of these is a list of these properties, all separated by commas. The last one has no comma after it, and then a closed curly bracket. Now, as I go through more and more examples, you're going to see that this file can get enormously more complex. It can have arrays built into it. It can have objects nested in other objects. And I'm so excited to look at all of those scenarios. But right now, I'm going to keep it very, very simple. But the reason why I'm mentioning the syntax so specifically is one comma out of place, one quote out of place. Your program won't work, and often you're not going to get such a great error message. So, we have to sort of think about and look at how you can deal with that. But one way of dealing with it is just be really, really careful as you kind of enter your data into a JSON file. So, I'm reading my flower encyclopedia. I found all this information. I'm going to format the data so I can use it. So I've come back over here. How am I doing on time? 7 minutes. You're watching a video for 7 minutes. That's really quite impressive on the internet. And I'm going to go over here to this plus. And I'm going to hit that plus, which is going to allow me to add a new file. And the new file is going to be called flower. I was saying flowers because ultimately I kind of want this file to be a list of different kinds of flowers. But right now I'm kind of being simple. So I'm just going to say flower.json. And I'm going to do exactly what I said. I'm going to say name, name, colon, sunflower. R is 255. G is 200, and B is 0. Now, so you can see here, now I have this file called flower.json, and it's got the data in it. Now, I hopefully did that correctly, but let's say you're not sure if you did it correctly. Well, there's a lot of these tools online. There's a lot of tools online that allow you to validate or check the syntax of a JSON file to make sure it's valid. So I'm going to very quickly just copy paste this and go to Chrome. I'm going to open up Chrome and I'm going to go to JSON. I'm going to Google JSON formatter and just click on the first thing that comes up. I'm going to paste the data into this box, and I'm going to click a process right here, which is going to validate and check my JSON. And it says valid, and you can even see it's sort of like syntax highlighted and did some things with it. And we might look at this later and some other ways you could do this. But this, I'll try to include a link to this particular tool in either like an annotation or in the comments below. So, so this is something you might want to do. And now, once we've done that, the question is now here under sketch.js. How do you change, right? I don't want to say flower equals this stuff right here in the code. I want to say flower equals the stuff that's in that file. How do I get the stuff that's in that file? So the way that you do that is with a function called load.json. So this process of saying I don't want to type the code. I want var flower to equal this stuff is accomplished with this function load.json. So I believe I talked in some video, link below or link in an annotation, I like to do that, about load image. There's also a function for load table. There's load sound if you're using the p5 sound library. So this is just yet another way of grabbing some sort of external piece of information. Could be a text file, a JSON file, an MP3 file, a movie file, an image file, loading it for use in your sketch. In this case, load JSON takes everything in the JSON file and essentially makes all of that in as the data stored in that variable, and then I can access it exactly the same way I would normally in JavaScript, as if I had written all that data into the variable itself, hard-coded in the code. Hope that makes sense. So now, but there's a couple pitfalls with this. The question sort of now arrives, like, where do you put that load JSON code? It would make sense to put it right here, right? Instead of this, if I comment, and I'm going to put this down here and comment it out, I would say load JSON flower.json. So this would make sense to you. you're just going to say, hey, instead of setting it equal to this stuff directly, let me load it from the file. And then, of course, one thing I would have to change is flower.r, flower.g, flower.b, right? Because I don't have a color, I have an RGB. So this should work. It's not going to work. I don't think it's going to work. Let's try it. So you can see, uncaught type error, cannot read property to string of undefined. That's a very sad error. There's a couple things sad about that error. I don't know what line 15,085, that's not, I don't have 15,000 lines of code. So it's reporting to you something that's happened deep into the p5.js library. And essentially, the issue is I am trying to access properties of a flower object that doesn't exist. But it should exist. I loaded it right there. This is a time where I'd like to meditate and remember that JavaScript is always asynchronous, something like that. I'm trying to introduce singing into the videos, but I think that's probably a terrible idea, but we'll see. So in other words, I've asked to load that data, and that data, it's going to take some time. It's on the hard drive. The gnomes in the computer have to go and like dig into the hard drive and find it and pull it back up, but draw, boom, is happening immediately. So what I need to do is I need to enforce, there's a couple things I need to enforce that the data is loaded before I start trying to draw with the data. And a quick way to do that, which is ultimately not the way that I'm going to show you in all of the videos, but at least for getting started, a quick way of doing that is using the preload function. So function preload, everything is event-based. And the events that are happening here in this particular sketch is preload, flower.json, so the preload is the first thing that runs, and everything in preload when it finishes, anything that's loaded in preload when it finishes loading, setup that runs, and then draw runs. So this is a way of guaranteeing that by the time we get to draw, that data will be in that particular variable. I really hope this works now, and you can see it does. And you can see I have my text of the sunflower there on the screen. So this just sort of wraps up a kind of very basic start of, okay, there's a load JSON function. Well, what is JSON? What is the syntax? There's a load JSON function that allows me to load that stuff that's in the file into a variable, and I can use the stuff in that file in the same way that I do in just about any JavaScript, any P5 sketch that I've ever done before. So what do I need? What's missing here? A couple things. One is I think we need to increase the order of complexity of the JSON file. Like, this isn't really getting us very far. There's not a lot of data here, and you're not usually going to see JSON files that look this simple. They're going to have tons of information in them. 10 recent New York Times articles, who wrote the article, all the comments for each article, an ID for the article, a word count for the article. There's like lots of information and arrays and nested objects. So what I want to do in the next video is look at some more complex JSON data and how it might be formatted and how you can kind of do some detective work to figure out how to access that data. What I would suggest to you if you want to do an exercise before you go to the next video is pick something that interests you, try to make a JSON file for it, put some data in it, see if you can load that data and display something based on that data. I'm sure you could think of something more interesting than just what I've done here. And something else that I'll mention, which I'll show in the beginning of the next video, is there is a wonderful GitHub repository. What's GitHub? Oh my God, what's Git? I need to make a video about that. But I don't know. Whoops, I'm in the wrong place here. I'm trying to open something. I can't find. Oh, Chrome. That's what I was trying to open. This is a GitHub repository maintained by Darius Kazemi. Hopefully, I pronounced his name correctly. And what it is it's a whole lot of JSON files all about different topics that people have manually made or pulled together from different sources and contributed. So let's say you're interested in art. I could click here, isms, and this is like a big list of all sorts of like kinds of isms, like lettrism, luminism, lyrical abstraction, ism. So anyway, I encourage you, I'll put a link. Another place you can do if you're like don't want to feel like typing out your own data set is go to this repository, look at the different JSON files there, try to copy paste one of them into your code, see if you can get access to it. And I'm going to look at one from this particular set. Maybe I have one about birds that I have in mind that I'll look at in another example of another context. Then, this is perhaps for another time, but you might think about contributing back. If you've made the most wonderful flowers, is there a flowers one in here? Let's look. Flower, code. Oh yeah, there's fireworks, flowers, look at this. I needed this. So here's a list of flowers. Anyway, you might make your own data set and contribute it back to this place for other people to use as well. So thanks for watching. And in the next video, I'm going to pull another JSON file. There's a bit more complexity to it because that's going to help us. So we're on this train. We're going to get to this point of like, we don't have this local file. We're actually getting the JSON data from Instagram or the New York Times or some other source, WordNick, that you might find. OK. Stop. OK, chat. jsonlint.com. Yes, I am a real person. Some people are. So if you have any comments, please let me know. I feel like I'm spitting. Can you see that I'm spitting in the videos? I think the sun is shining in. I can kind of see it. It's very embarrassing. Sometimes I have like a little droplet of something on my lip, and I notice it after the fact, and I want to go in and like, you know, if I don't know how to do this stuff, but use like After Effects and like remove it. Some like red spots on my face, but you know, anyway. Okay, so I need to drink some water, and I'd love to hear some feedback. I'm kind of thanks for posting the link in the chat to the GitHub thing. I'm over here. Let me go back to my list. So I think I need a third video here, which is reading more complex JSON data. And so arrays and nested objects. So I'm adding that in my list of videos that I'm planning to make before I go to the get JSON from a URL, which will involves a callback. Because I think that's going to be helpful. Okay, so let me find now. The one that I used in class at ITP that I thought was like a good one was under birds, I thought, maybe under animals. Birds, Antarctica. So the reason why I like this one is it has, I guess I should move this over so it can be seen. It has, sorry, I'm like, it has it has some stuff at the beginning, then it has birds, which is an array, then each object has two things, and the thing inside it is an array. So this is like a trickier one to work with that I think is a bit more in line with what you might see in some data that you find. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start looking at this particular example in 1 minute. I need to cycle the cameras. Any feedback? Oh, I had dead air. Dead air is bad. I've lost a little bit of steam here. Let's see, this has been going for, it hasn't even been going for an hour. I gotta do better than that. Okay, so here I go. What do we need here? I think this is fine. I think I'm gonna erase this. Just leave the whiteboard blank to start with. And I'm going to talk about how you can have nested objects or nested objects and arrays of objects in JSON. Okay. And last chance for any feedback or comments from you guys watching on the stream. Otherwise, I'm just gonna get going. So come back. There I am. And I'm going to go back instead there. I'm going to this down. I don't think I need the city bike data open anymore. Or this. Or this. I'm going to start here. Refresh. I wish, that's fine. I'm just trying to make this size make sense. I think this will work fine. Okay, I hope this is a good demonstration. We'll see. So let me save this now as JSON2. And I'm gonna say var birds, birds.json, and this sort of thing. Okay, I think I'm good to go for the next particular video. And I'm gonna start. What do I press to start again? I can't remember. Okay. Oh, I forgot what I was going to do. I need some like, I don't know, some protein or something quickly. Lentils, I don't know, something like that. Hello, I'm here again. And in this particular video, I would like to look at JSON data that's a bit more complex. I know it. I kind of want to have what I had previously open. Sorry. Show sidebar, flower. I'll leave that open. Right. And it's fine. I'll leave this minimized. Okay. I can do this. You guys with me here? Is this making sense? You enjoying this? I need some positive feedback. Okay. Here we go. Hello. So in the previous video, I spent some time talking about something called JSON. And this is a JSON file that has information about one of my favorite things in the world, the sunflower. But this was a nice demonstration for us getting started. But if you look at this, it's so unbelievably simple. It's a single object with just 4 name value pairs, 4 like little chunks of data in it. And realistically, this is not likely the scenario you're going to encounter if you're trying to do something about, you know, the history of historical weather in, you know, I gotta, just give me one more chance. I couldn't think of an example, and that's what happens. Okay, look at the chat. Okay, here we go. Good, it's the afternoon. Hello again. Don't say anything about the time. Somebody said that to me. Hello, so I'm now in part 2 of this discussion about working with JSON data. And in the previous video, I looked at this thing that's wonderful in the world, a sunflower, beautiful flower, and how you might encapsulate the idea of a sunflower as data in a JSON file. And it was kind of a reasonable demonstration for this first step of working with data. But if you look at it, it's really simple. It's like a single object. It's got 4 properties in it. There's not a lot of complexity. You know, flower.name, flower.r. That's all you sort of had to worry about. But realistically, you're going to find a data set that's going to have a lot more in it. You might want to have a data set that has, you know, the high temperature in, you know, Tokyo every day for the last year, and then lots of other information about the weather that day, and there's going to be a list and a whole bunch of like nested objects. So what's a scenario like that, and how do you deal with it? So the scenario that I'm going to use, I think, and I'll pull it from this website that I mentioned that has a whole lot of data sources in it that you can grab. Let's think about birds for a second. Another personal favorite topic of mine, except that I'm not going to be able to like pull names of birds out of a hat. But so first things first. If you go back to this, there's just a single thing in there. I really should just keep going with the flowers thing, but the example I have is birds. So what if your data isn't like a single object, but actually is a whole bunch of objects? Like here are 10 images from Google Image Search, or here are 10 recent articles from the New York Times. What if your data is 10 birds that live in Antarctica? Is that what I have? I can't remember. That's the data that I have. So the data set, again, a JavaScript object generally always starts with a curly bracket and a closed curly bracket to indicate it's an object, but the data itself might have an array in it. And that array might be named birds. And each one of those birds might be an object with a name, you know, penguin, and a height. Oh, I can't think of it. Something. Size, height. Let's just go with height. I don't know. How tall are penguins? They're small. 1 meter, right? And then that's an object. And then the next thing in the array is the name is an eagle, and these should be in quotes. And the height of an eagle is 3 meters. Obviously, I don't know anything about birds. Clearly, we're finding out. So you can see how this now has a bit more complexity than just the sunflower. Because what we have here is an object that has a property in it called birds. That property is an array. Each element of the array is an object. So let's say, for example, we loaded this into a variable called data. How would you get access to the height of the eagle, for example? Data dot birds would get me here. Now this is an array. This is element 0. This is element 1. So if it's an array, I've got to say index 1. And so now I'm in this object, and I want to get the height dot height. So you can see I have to figure out the path into this JSON file. I need to know the property name that I'm looking for. And if that property is an array, I need to know the index that I'm looking for. And if that thing in the array is an object, I need to know the property of that object that I'm looking for. So this is just one scenario. I could probably like let this camera record for like the next like 72 hours and just keep making scenarios. We would all become like insane in our like world of like JSON scenarios. But so this is the kind of thing you really need to unfortunately or fortunately practice on your own as you start to find different data sources. But let's do this one step further, and I'm going to go pull an actual data set about birds, and then we'll double back and do this again with that data set. And there's also another missing piece here. What if you wanted to actually loop through and do something? There are 100 birds in this file. How would I make this index into the array some sort of variable like I, so I could say what's the first bird and then the second bird and then the third bird? So that's another aspect of this that's important. Okay, so let's go the place where I'm going to find a data set, it's a GitHub repository, and I'm going to skip talking about what GitHub or Git is, but you can find the URL. I'll definitely post it somewhere, and see if you want to pause the video and look at it. It's right up here. Just /Kapora is all you need. Oops, I'm already there. So I want to go here, and I'm going to click under data, and I'm going to look for animals, and I'm really like, which one was I doing? Birds of North America? Oh no, let's do the Antarctica. Birds of Antarctica. So you can see here is the JSON file. Now let's make this, actually, so let me do something to just copy it into p5. So I'm going to make a new JSON file called birds.json. I'm going to paste it in here. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to make this a little bigger, and I'm going to come look at it here. So here we have this scenario now, and we have to do some detective work. So let's come back over here. I'm going to have to go back and forth a little bit. This is no longer our JSON file. Our JSON file is actually, you can look at it for a second while I erase, it's that thing. Take a look at it. Does it make sense to you? What's the first property? Is the first property an array? No, it's not an array. Is it an array? I have to come over here and look. The first property is description. Description is just some text. The next property is source, which is also some text. The next property is birds, which is an array. Each element of the array is an object that has two properties. One is family, one is members, and members is also an array. So you can see how nested this can become. So let's say what I want to do is, and this is like, you wouldn't normally, I think this is sort of arbitrary. You wouldn't necessarily want to do this, but just to like make the sort of case here is I'm really interested in, I want to pull out exactly the imperial shag. So how do I get to, actually, let me not use that as an example, because let's look at I don't know how to pronounce this, the crozet shag. I kind of want to do a Google image search to see what that bird looks like. Oh, cormorants, I love cormorants. They're good. They like fly so low over the water. They're excellent. So how do I get to this particular piece of data? Okay, so let's say I have an object called data. What's the first thing that this is embedded in members, which is in this object, which is in this other array called birds. So what I need to do is say data dot birds. That's the first thing I need to do. Come back over here. Now I'm in here. I'm at birds. This whole object is object 0. This second object is object 1. So I want to be in object 1. Now, what's the property I want in object 1? Not family. I want members. So object 1 dot members. Object 1 dot members. And now, over here, 0, 1, 2. So that's also an array, and I want to look at the crozet or the crozet or the crozet shag, which is the third element, but index 2 in that array. So now, over here, index 2. So again, searching through, looking into a JSON file to pull out some aspect of the data is all about knowing the path. What's the root element? You can think of the root element. What's the object inside of that you're looking at? Is that object an array? If it is, then what's the element in that array? If that's an object, then you want to get the property of that object, which happens to be array. So again, every scenario is going to be different, but this is one scenario that's a bit more complex than just that single sunflower example. So now let's actually display this in our code to make sure, and I'm going to close the flower one, and I'm going to say birds. I'm going to load that JSON file into here, and I'm just going to say create p. Let's actually not even use a canvas. Create p. If you haven't watched the videos about how to make DOM elements, how to make paragraphs and links and other things on the page, you can look at that. I'm going to say var bird equals birds. Oh no, data. Oh sorry, I want to make this call this data, because the first thing data. Are you looking at that? Data dot birds. What did I say? Index 1 dot members index 2. Index 1 dot members index 2. And now create p that bird. And if we run this, we're going to see, look at that. There it is. That's the bird I'm seeing on the screen. Now, again, this is like a trivial sort of this is like I'm proving that JSON works. There's data in there. It has a structure. That structure can be accessed. But most likely what you'd want to be doing is displaying everything in the data set, or creating some tool where the user could search into the data set. And ideally that data set might have thousands of birds in it instead of just 10 or however many are in there. So let's go a little bit deeper. I'm at 10 minutes and you're sticking with me. I'm thankful again, because I feel like I'm talking. It's weird to do these things by myself in this room, even though at least I have a window and I can see there's people on the street. Hello out there. Say hi. I'm making a video about JSON. Do you care? I wonder if there's somebody watching on their phone. Maybe that would be sort of strange. Okay, back to this thing. So what if what I wanted to do? Let's look at the data again. I haven't done any singing yet, which I think I probably should do to just make this video a little more interesting. What if what I wanted to do was display? I have an idea. I think I did this as an example. What I want to do is display the family of, I want to display all the birds in this file. And I want to see the family as a header, and then I want to see the list of the birds underneath it. So bigger text for the family and smaller text for these. So let's just start with that. So the difference here is, instead of looking for a particular item, what I want to do, and it might make sense for me to say, var birds equals data.birds. So I'm just going to pull out that birds object in the file, which is data.birds, and stick it in a variable, because that's an array. And now I can say loop through birds.length. And let's just start by saying create element. And h1, I can't spell, element, h1, what? Birds index I.family. So I want birds index 0.family, then index 1.family, and then presumably there's more birds down here. So birds index I.family. So this now, you can see, oh whoops, and I don't need this anymore. Oh wait, where did I, oh yeah, sorry, this is irrelevant. This was from my previous example. You can see here, this is a way of now looping through the data. So you can see that this particular loop is going through and accessing every element of the array, birds, and looking for the family. So these are just the family names. But what I want to do is actually look through all the members of the family names. So inside that loop, each and every bird, I need another loop to say each and every member of each and every bird. So how do I do that? So first, let me make a variable called members, which is birds.members, right? Members, birds.members. That's that array, and then this array. And so now what I want to do is say for, and I'll use j, because I need a different variable than I, members.length, j++, and I'll just say create div members index j. Because, so first I want to get the I have all these bird objects, and I want to just see the family name. And then I want to look at the members, but the members is an array, so I need to loop through that array. And let's see if that works. Cannot find, okay, so what did I get wrong? I must have got birds.members, var members. Let's look at this again. Birds, aha. It's not birds.members, it's what? Birds index I.members. Classic mistake, right? I'm looping through an array called birds, and I want to get the members of each element of the array. So I want to get the members of element 0, then the members of element 1. That's what I did with family. So I need to have index I.members, and now we can see here, look, there are the albatrosses, there are the cormorants, the diving pretzels, the duck, geese, and swans, the gulls, the penguins, ooh, lots of good penguins. This is a great data set. You can see now I have all of this data appearing on the page. Now again, I haven't done anything that I would say is interesting with this data, but I'm showing you just how to navigate a JSON file. You might look for a particular piece of data, you might iterate over all the data. Certainly you could think about how would you draw something based on the data? Like maybe you would draw circles tied to the number of members of each family of birds. You could animate that. Could you have flying birds on the screen, each with their name? I don't know. Think of all sorts of creative things you could do besides just, I'm just showing you, let me literally display exactly the data on the web page. So this, I think, kind of, I could keep going with this. In the end, like, you're going to have a different data set. It's going to look different, and you're going to have your own sets of like how to navigate it. Hopefully this will give you a sense. Practice this. So get a JSON file, make it yourself, find it from somewhere online, load it, like put it in your P5 sketch, load it into a variable, see if you can pull out a single piece of data, see if you can pull out all the data. Can you get that to work? I encourage you to use this Corpora repository, which just has a lot of kind of goofy and random sets of data in it. Hopefully that'll get you started. What I want to do in the next video is look at how you might pull this data from a URL. So what if you had a www.something.com/something.json that you could pull rather than just this local file that's typed in your project? The reason why that could be useful is somebody else might prepare a JSON file for you that's dynamic, that's changing, and you could query it, which is like one step closer to this idea of an API, of using somebody else's sort of system that you're querying to get a certain amount of JSON data back. So I don't know, I feel like, God, you must have all these, a lot of that must not have made any sense, or you've probably turned this off long ago. But if you're still watching, I don't know, say something to me that you're watching. Never mind, don't say it. I'm going to edit that part out. I don't know what I seem very, very needy today. Maybe I am. Okay, I think this covers it. Okay. I can't stop. I can't find the stop button. Okay. Okay, so that was that video. Okay. I see a few comments. If you have questions, please ask me questions, and I'm going to sort of get ready to think about what's going to be in the next particular video, the next topic. Here is my list. So I think I have now done 3. Intro to data, what is JSON, reading more complex JSON data. I could have done that in a more like generic way of just looked at object and array syntax, but hopefully it'll help. And then getting JSON from a URL, oh, and a callback. Okay, so I'm going to use, there's 2 that I like to use. And if you have a suggestion for something I can use really quickly in the next example, I'm all ears. But what I usually use is how many people are in space. This is, no wait, this is like the open notify. Yeah, this is what I'm looking for. So this is like, oh, I forgot to add something to that example, but that doesn't matter. So this is like kind of goofy little API that just returns you the number of people in space and who's in space in their spacecraft. The other something that I sometimes use is JSON time, but this is often down, like JSON test time. Yeah. Looks like maybe it's working. IP, no, this is like, where's the time one? Oh yeah, date or time.json. Yeah. This hasn't worked for me recently. It's a nice demonstration because the reason why I like using this one is like the time is always updating, so you're getting like different data constantly. I wish there was a good, like, if you know of a good, like, simple, just like no authentication JSON call that requires no query string, that just gives you something that changes continuously. This is always so perfect. I guess I should make it. I could just buy, I don't have time to do it right now. And I'll go over quota as everybody else uses it. Date and time. What's the chance that the date one works? No. Oh well, if you know of anything, if you haven't, I guess I'm just going to use the how many people are in space right now. Let me ask on Twitter real quick. Oh yeah, I'm, hold on. This is riveting to see me like over here trying to post something on Twitter. What is the URL? JSON test, hold on. Somebody might know something I'm going to ask there. Okay, I'm looking for drop dead simple JSON from URL that is always changing, no login, no query string. This is down. All right, we'll see if anybody comes with a suggestion. And here we go. So now I need to, so I guess I'll stick with the open notify, and that's sort of fine. I'm really just going to emphasize the callback and drawing something in Canvas, I think. So let me save as JSON3. And God, it's so hot in this room with these lights. I have the window open, but it's just overwhelmingly warm. And I can get rid of all of this. And leave this here. Close this. And the one thing I want to do is look at this in the browser. Oh, good. Excellent. Okay, I think I'm ready. Let me see if anybody responded. Nobody's going to respond to me on Twitter with like a perfect thing in 2 seconds. I could always make 2 videos. Okay, so let's go back to here. And could attach it to a button. Anyway, sorry, I'm like really, I wish I had that example. I wish it was working, but it's not. Okay. Need a snack. Okay, so the next topic is how to load data from a URL and use a callback so that an animation can keep running, or that it can happen when the user presses a button, something like that. So, okay. Okay, here we go. Any last thoughts before I record? Okay. Here we go. I need to do some jumping jacks or get some fresh air. Oh, I'm not even in the right screen. Okay. In this video, I want to look at how to load data formatted in JSON from a URL and what it means to do that asynchronously with a callback and why would you want to do that. This is the topic. So previously in my fancy example about bird data, I used this preload function. The preload function guarantees that the data is loaded before the program even starts. So you have access to the data and you can draw with the data. But let's think of some other scenarios where this is not useful to you. For example, what if you have a web page which has a canvas with some sort of like, animation in it, and then you have a button where you say load data. So the data, you want the data to be, new data to be loaded every time the user presses the button. When they press the button, go and get the most recent data. So you can't use preload for that because you can't preload data in the future in preload, right? You need to be able to call load JSON somewhere else. Here's another scenario. What if actually this animation, what if you want to just continuously query data over and over again? Like, what's the most recent data? What's the most recent data? You want to almost do that in the draw loop or every 10 cycles in the draw loop. Well, if that's what you want to do, you want to query load JSON inside draw, and you don't want the animation to stop and wait for the data. You want it to keep going, but then update itself when you get some data. So this is something you need. Suddenly, you need this idea of a callback. Now, this idea of a callback is present in several of my other video. You may remember me from DOM manipulation, callbacks and events. And I'll link to that video below. So I'm using the same concept here, meaning instead of saying var birds equals load JSON something, what I want to say is load JSON that something, and then I want to say something like comma got data. So when I said this in preload, the JSON data came into birds and then the program started. Here, what I'm saying is load the data. Don't put it anywhere because it's not there yet. But trigger this function got data when the data is available. When you finished loading, that's when this function got data should be executed. Now here I said var birds equals load JSON. So the data that's in that JSON file gets stored in the variable birds. Where do I put the data? I'm querying data. Where does it go? It does not set to a variable. It doesn't go inside the function. Well, actually, yes. It does go inside the function. And the way that it goes inside the function is if you declare the function with an argument, it doesn't have to be called data, but that's a nice name for it because it is data, that the result of this the result of loading the data this variable gets filled with that data. I said that sentence like in such a convoluted way. It's as if you're triggering an action. Go and start loading the data. I can hear the clicking of the camera going off. And then the data is I should stop and restart, but I'm gonna take a moment to breathe. Take a break. Breathe deeply. Think about something else besides JSON and data. What's the point of all this anyway? Call your mother. Let's come back to this now. Okay, so this is a function load JSON. You're asking for the data in this particular file or URL. When the data is ready, this function will be executed and the data will magically appear inside this variable. This load JSON function, incidentally, this is part of the p5.js library. So there are many other ways of making this kind of call, this asynchronous call in JavaScript. It's asynchronous because this thing happens later, right? This triggers a process of loading data. Other code is happening, and then this function happens later when the data is able to be read. Boy, someone download this video and edit that section out. So now I have to come over and turn this camera back on. There was a time where I would have just restarted, but it's Today's not that day. So what I'm going to do is, okay, so first of all, well, let's just do it with this birds data. So I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to get out of preload here, and I'm going to put this down into setup, and I'm going to say load JSON, birds.json got data. And then I'm going to write the function, got data, and give it that argument, data, and I'm just going to say print line data. So let's just see that this works, right? I want to see that this works. I want to see that I'm starting the action of loading the data. It's going to move on to draw, and eventually when the data is ready, it's going to print it out to the console. So let's just see that that works, and you can see, look, there's all the data, it's there. Now it happens super, super fast. And that's because it's a local file. Still though, even if I were to try to do something like, let's see, print line data.description in draw. Oh, okay, I just did something crazy. Oh boy, I'm off the, I gotta restart this video. This was, there was too much that was a disaster in this video. So I think I can, I think I can either actually also go back, and there's only 11 of you watching right now, so I apologize to 11 of you. But the people who watch the recorded version of this will thank you for listening to me do this again. But I think that I also kind of need to use, I need to pee. So I need a short break, which I think will help. I'm going to get some more water. I should have just said, I shouldn't have admitted that. I just should have said that I'm going to take a water break. Now, this microphone will stay on. I'm going to mute the microphone. This is one of the stranger things I've done in my life. I will be right back in just a few minutes. And I'm going to set the microphone to mute. I tried to tell people in the hallway to come in and say hi, but nobody seemed to want to. Okay, I'm back here. Thank you guys. Oh, I need to I should really get some water. I still have a little bit in the. All right. I hope someone took a screenshot of that. I guess it will be archived forever. Okay, I'm gonna start this one over because I Okay. All right. So let me start this over because I kind of like I was spending too much time there on stuff that I didn't need to spend on. And yes, I think that was fast. Are you sure you washed your hands? I definitely washed my hands. I don't know how to show you evidence of that, but I really did. And you know, there's no, I don't know what else to say about that. Okay. All right. Here we go. I'm going to start this over. So let me recap what I'm doing here. The point of this particular video that I am now going to make is to talk about loading JSON from a URL, why the scenario of having a preload doesn't apply to most scenarios, how the syntax for callback works, how the flow of the program works for a callback, and then I will grab excuse me, the how many people in space data is, and then I'm going to api.github.com events. Okay, so that's excellent. That is a good. Somebody on Twitter just let me know I should pull this up. This is a little bit more complex. The problem with this is that it's like overly complex. api.github.com/events. But if we look at this, the ID is changed. I could at least just pull out the ID. It's interesting too that it's already an array. I could probably make this work. Sort of interesting. The reason I don't love this example is, I'm trying to make these videos super friendly, and like I do want to like use GitHub and make some videos about Git at some point, but I feel like this is like it's kind of opening a can of worms. And the reason why I like that time API is that it just had like one single value that changed. So I don't think I can use this, unfortunately. I'm going to say great suggestion, but a bit too complex for my needs right now. But we'll use it at some point. We'll use it, sorry, in a more advanced. Okay, I'll reply to my things on Twitter later. Sorry. Okay, I'm like avoiding doing this video because I had such trouble. I'm having trouble with these. But maybe they're fine. Maybe I'm doing fine and I'm worrying about this way too much. Okay. I gotta, it's 3 o'clock. I said I was gonna do this till 3:30. I would like to get at least 2 more in, so I better get this started. We go back to the chat. You guys are still talking about my pee, which is really amusing me. That brings me joy. I need some cooler air. I'll open this window even more. That's going to do the trick. And do some jumping jacks. Okay, here we go. I can do this. So in this video, what I would like to look at is what happens. Okay. This video, I want to look at loading JSON data, not from a local file like birds.json that's right there in your project, but from a URL. And this is one step along the way to querying an API, to saying like, hey, weather map thing, give me some weather data, or hey, New York Times, give me some New York Times data. But I want to start simpler than that. But so first of all, this is actually really, really easy in the sense that all I need to do is replace birds.json with a URL that gives me JSON data, but it brings up a question about how you work with loading data beyond just this preload thing. So the preload idea was super convenient. It guarantees that all the data is loaded before the program starts. So you've got all the data, you can do anything you want with it as the program's running. But this breaks down very quickly and very easily. So for example, here's a scenario where you want to have some sort of weather visualization, like you're going to show the sun if it's sunny out, or some rain if it's raining, and you have a button that just says like load data. So every time the user presses that button, it should get the most recent data, the current weather. So you can't use preload for that because you can't preload the future. Boy, wouldn't that be great? So when you invent the whole like time travel thing, you can use preload, like preload time. Maybe that's how we get time. I don't know. You can see how this doesn't work, right? You can't preload the data. You've got to load the data while the program is running. Certainly you could also make the same case of as a program is running, you just want to continuously, like if you're trying to visualize financial data and it's just like changing every 3 seconds, in your draw loop, you might want to query the data and query the data and query the data. You also don't want the program to stop animating while it's waiting to load the data. So you need to load the data in what's known as an asynchronous manner, meaning when the data can arrive at another sort of like parallel universe of your code that's running. So your code is trucking along, it's starting, it's animating, it's looping, it's doing its stuff, and at any point there you could say, hey, load some data and let me know when the data is loaded. So how do you do that? Right? We said previously in preload var birds equals load JSON. This is the synchronous way, right? Preload loads the data, the program waits and waits and waits and waits to start. The asynchronous way is to just simply only call the load JSON function, pass it the path of the data that you want to load, birds.json or some URL, and then what's known as a callback function. So I'm going to call my callback function got data. So this, by the way, is exactly a topic that I discussed in a previous set of videos all about looking at HTML elements like buttons and sliders and what happens to have a callback when you click the button. So I'll just try to have a link back to the video about callback and events. This is exactly the same idea here. I now need to write a function to handle the asynchronous nature of the data arriving later at some other time separate from my program that's running in its animation loop. So if I say function got data, this function is the callback for loading the data. I'm starting a process. Hey, go and load some data, and when you're done, let me know. The let me know is trigger the code in here. Now, this isn't magic. This isn't some like default thing that just happened. This is sort of the nature of how just about everything in JavaScript works. But load JSON and this methodology, this is specific to the p5.js library. Of course, with native JavaScript or jQuery or all these other frameworks, they all have something similar to this. So conceptually, this is a kind of concept that's sort of across the board in working with data, but this syntax and this function name is specific to p5.js. So I give it the URL, I give it the callback, and then this function's triggered and when the data is ready. Like, the data is ready. So I got some singing again, that's good. The question is like, where is the data? Like I've completely lost, like here, the data is in this variable called birds. That's very obvious. I'm saying birds equals load JSON, but there's no variable anywhere. There's just the URL, the load JSON function, and the callback. So the special way that P5 works, and that a lot of things in JavaScript works, is if you add a parameter to your function definition, your callback definition, I'm calling it data, P5 behind the scenes will fill that variable in the function with the data. So it's like you said, this data variable equals the result of load JSON, but it happens asynchronously. Load JSON from this URL. When you're done, trigger this function. When that function's triggered, the data will be in that variable. Got it? I don't know what to do. That's all I can say about it. But send me your messages. Write them and give a carrier pigeon or Twitter or whatever, email, contact me, say hi. I need human interaction is a useful and important thing. So let's make that happen over here, right? So in other words, instead of saying data equals load JSON, I want to say, and I don't want to have preload actually at all. Like I could actually just here, I could say, and actually I could say, I'll just put it in setup. I'll make this more interesting later. I could just say load JSON birds.json. They're coming for me. Help everybody. My heart is racing a little bit, so maybe somebody knows that I might need some medical attention. Birds.json is the name of the file. Got data is going to be the name. That's a name that I'm making up for the callback. I'm going to create that function called got data. I'm going to give it a parameter right there. So now this is the process. Start the process of loading the data. When it's loaded, execute this function, fill this variable with data. And now I can say console.log data, or just, print line. I like to use doesn't matter, but I just want to see that this works. And I'm going to run this, and you can see that's happening. And it's happening super fast because the data is loaded, and then this is triggered. Great, it works. So now let's move on from this birds data set, and let's think about what it means now to pass a URL into that function and how we might query the data at a particular moment in time while the program's running. So what I want to do is I'll use a simple an API that I like to use, which is a URL for JSON data that I like to use. This is really which tells us how many people are in space right now. So I'm going to go grab this URL right here, I'm going to paste it into the browser just to see that this works. And you can see, look at this. This URL is giving me JSON data. What is it giving me? It's giving me information about the number of people in space. And you can see it's an object with a number 6. And it's got then an array of people with their craft, the International Space Station, and their name. So the number of people currently in space is 6, and these are all the people, and that's the spaceship that they're on. Now, ideally, it would be great if this was a data set that like changed very often. So if you hit refresh, it'd say 7, and then 8, and then 4. But I guess people aren't like going to and from space very often. So this isn't like necessarily the best demonstration of why you would need this. But in some future videos, I'll get to data that's sort of changing or that needs to be refreshed in your program. So all I need to do now, if this works, is take this particular URL and paste it right in here. So you can see that load JSON works not just with a local file, but with a particular URL. And now if I run this, ooh, I don't see anything. I wonder, interesting. And I didn't even get an error. I'm going to just add something. Close your eyes and don't pay attention to what I'm doing. Yeah, it worked. Okay, so this is a good moment to have this discussion. Security is a thing, right? Authenticating with a name and a password, and allowing a browser, your browser on your machine to talk to your camera or to talk to another server. Working with data opens up this kind of big can of worms of what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. And there comes a time in your life where you'll find a URL, and that URL, it gives you JSON data because I pasted it into the browser right there, and I see that JSON data right there, but I put it in my load JSON function, and like nothing happened. Now, honestly, I didn't even get an error here. There's a bit of a secret that I think I'll show you, which is right up here in the browser window. There's this like settings, and I can click on that, and I can get some more error messages. And you can actually see the error message that came. XML HTTP request cannot load this. No access control. Allow origin is present. Origin is therefore not allowed access. This error message is like the bane of my existence. I always forget that it might happen, and sometimes it doesn't happen, and sometimes it does happen. This has nothing to do with you or me. This has to do with how the server, the place that the URL address is configured. And this URL does not necessarily just allow you by default to grab the data. However, there is something called JSON P. The P stands for padding. I like to think of it as like a safety net. It's like I'm in a room with padded walls and I won't hurt myself asking for the JSON data. And I feel like that would be an interesting topic for another video to delve into that more deeply. So sometimes if you're not allowed access in this sort of traditional way, you can use this thing called JSON P to get the data. And one of the ways that I do is I like put the URL in load JSON, and when it doesn't work, I just add JSON P and I hope that it works. And usually it's gonna, I try it first without it. If it doesn't work, I try it with it. You can write your, I'll maybe include a link to more information about JSON P in the description of this video. So what do I mean by adding it? So it's an optional third argument to the load JSON function. So the load JSON function requires the URL and the callback, and optionally you can add a third argument, which is the string JSON P, which allows you to get past this access origin control crazy error thing that sometimes comes up where the server's not allowing you to get plain JSON. You need JSON with a little padding. There's no padding over here. Hurt a little bit. Okay, I'm very sensitive, I'm a fragile person. So anyway, so fortunately, if I type JSON P as that third argument, it's good that that happened because it's going to happen to you. And I run it. You can see that the data is now arriving there. I'm seeing it. So let's do something with this data. And to finish off this particular video that's already 11 minutes long. So if I look at this data, one thing I might like to do is just like draw a circle for every single person that is I'll draw a circle for every single person that's in space right now. So interestingly enough, if I know that the data is available in the getData function, that's a place where I could do some drawing. So for example, I could say for var I equals 0, I is less than data dot number, right? That's the number 6, I plus plus, and I could say ellipse at random width, random height, 16 16. I could say fill 255. This is going to be the least interesting data visualization anyone has ever made in their entire life. But we can now see, and I can say create canvas 200, 200. I can now see that when I run this, I now get this lovely canvas with 6 circles on it. So this is, look, I did data visualization. I loaded a URL, I gave it a callback, I even used JSON P for some padding, and then I have my padding song, but that's different, that's like CSS. Anyway, I need a separate video which is just the padding song. But and then I pulled out the number, I made a little loop, and I drew circles based on how many people in space. And if I could just like keep refreshing this, I'll get in a different location, but if somebody would just leave space right now, then you would see 5 circles instead of 6. So this is the basic idea. I do think, however, there are a couple other pieces to this that I want to demonstrate, although you could stop watching now if you want. You can stop watching it anytime if you want. So one thing is it was kind of nice. Like, this is just static. I don't need anything to animate here, so I just put the drawing stuff in got data. But let's say what you actually wanted to do was have a particular animation that's going on. So you want your, like, for example, I want the background, I want to have, this isn't going to be interesting, but let's say I want to have this like line that goes across the screen from x0, x to height, x equals x plus 1, and if x is greater than width, x equals 0, and I say stroke 255. So in other words, I want like the circles to appear with like this animation. So if I were to put the drawing right back in got data, I know I'm doing this kind of quickly and scrolling around like a madman here on the screen, but right, this is not going to work. Because remember, draw is looping to always draw that animation. Got data is an event that happens just once when the data is ready. So that happened and it drew those circles, but it immediately got overridden by draw. So there's an easy solution to this problem, you might think, which is like, okay, just take the circles and put them here in draw. So now there's a lot of problems with this. Let me run this. Okay, first of all, it's not working. Why is it not working? Now, hopefully I probably have some error message, which we could see. Uncaught reference error, data is not defined. Well, of course it's not defined. I can't use this variable data down here in draw. Got data is a callback. That variable data is only available in that function. So one thing I could do is I could say var, I'm going to say space data. I could make up a global variable, and I could say space data equals data. So this is now I need a way of this is a sort of simplistic way of doing it, but it'll work. I need a way of connecting the data that came in to something that's happening in draw, and a quick way of doing that is just have a global variable. So I want to ask for the data. When the data comes in, I immediately store it in some other variable, a variable that I can access in draw. So now if I run this, and you can see me accessing it there in draw, if I run this again, now what's happening? Oh, I have to change this to space data. Cannot read property number of undefined. Ooh, what happened? What's not working? I know it's not working. I'm pausing to let you think about it for a second. Asynchronicity, if that's even a word, I'm not sure, but this is the issue. Remember, how are all of these, what's the sequence here? Let me try to get everything here on the screen. And let's just move this animation for a second below here so we can see like the pieces that matter. Right? There's setup where I'm asking to load the data. There's got data where I'm retrieving the data. And there is draw where I am using the data. What's the order of the program? Setup starts first. Make the canvas. The canvas is there. Load the data. That's a process that's now happening in the background. Let's go to draw. Start drawing. Draw with space data. The data's not loaded yet. This is going to take a while. You got to query the URL, make some connection across the internet, get the data back. So space data is not anything until this happens, but draw has already started. So there is a nice way of dealing with this. And it has to do with a kind of a nice trick that you can do in JavaScript, which is using a Boolean test, an if statement, which is a concept you're probably quite familiar with. We usually think of a Boolean expression as something that evaluates to true or false. Like if 7 is greater than 5, this is absolutely true. But what does it mean for me to say if space data Now, one of the nice things about JavaScript is it just like all it ever wants to do is to have things be true or false. Like a number, it can be evaluated to true or false. Like if it's 0, it's false. If it's any other number, I think it's true. A string probably could be evaluated. If it's like the string false, that's probably going to evaluate to false. So what is actually the value of space data before the data comes in? It's undefined. If you have a variable that's not initialized, like up here, space data is not initialized, its initial value is undefined. And undefined evaluates to false. So space data and defined like an object just automatically evaluates to true. So you can basically say if space data as a way of saying if space data exists. So space data, it doesn't exist until the data has actually come in. So if I just add that, oops, oh, I was in the wrong view. You're going to have to live with that. I can, right here, I can say if space data, then do this. So now, even though draw starts looping, this part of draw won't actually happen until space data gets filled here. And now we can see this works. Now, of course, I'm drawing them at random locations. Here's actually a really quick trick for me to get that to stop. I could just say random seed. It's kind of a topic for another video, but random seed is a function that seeds the random number generator, so I always get the same exact sequence of random numbers. And that's going to work for me here, at least just in a sort of quick and dirty way. So you can see I now have an animation and a visualization at the same time. I'm not drawing the part with the data until the data has come in. So this was like very long-winded, this particular video. Like I probably could have done this in half the time. But what I would suggest to you right now, if you're looking for an exercise to do, is go to this particular data source. I'll link to it below, and see if you can at least add the people. Like, what could you add the craft and the name as like text next to the circles or something? Or can you use the rest of the data here also and quickly get it to work in this asynchronous callback way? And I think now we've actually covered enough that the next step can really be is like, well, what if you've got an API like the New York Times or Instagram that's serving up data? How do you query that API with load.json and do stuff that way? Okay. Boy, this was a 20-minute video. Ooh, I don't know about this. Okay. All right, I don't know if anyone is still there. Yeah, somebody says video is getting long, isn't it? Yes, it certainly is. Okay, hello everyone. Whoops, I don't know where I just went to. I don't know if anyone's still there. I don't know if I have it in. It's what time is it now? It's 3:20. Let me look at. Yeah, that was too long, I think, frankly. But so I've done 4, which is pretty good. I think I might now, unfortunately, stop and just sort of take some questions. Or maybe, let's see, maybe I can at least do one API. Maybe I'll do open weather map, at least to get that. I would love to do WordNick, but let me poke around on the internet, give me some feedback, and ask any questions, and I'm going to see if I can get myself ready to use open weather map. And the cameras are now shutting off, which I will fix. Open weather map. Because what I want to do is look at the... And I want to click to the API, go here to Twitter and see. So like, for example, current weather data, that would be useful if I click on more, by location, weather, query equals London, and then, so let's see. So let's say if I did this, getting the current weather in London, and I paste this in here, invalid API key. Okay, so this is a good demonstration because we're going to get that. And then I could show signing up for an API key, but I already have one. So I'm just going to grab that from here. And then I would put that in here. And then I've got the data. And this is also good because this is not formatted nicely. And I can demonstrate how to install a Chrome extension. Then I can load this. And then I could draw something like clouds or wind. I could draw something based on this data. I think I'll make this video now. I had to save the day. So I've saved the day. I would stop if I were you. I I feel like I have time to do one more. I'm getting a little rambly. Is that what you're saying? Probably should stop. I'm going to get a little bit of water. I'm going to leave the mic on. I'm going to get some camera turned up. I'm going to get some more water. But this, I'm going to leave the mic on, so you'll be listening to me talk as I get the water. I am now in the hallway. I'm over by the water. It's filling. Can you hear the water filling? It's not me. It's really a water thing. Okay, coming back to the room. Any second now. It's a good 10 degrees hotter in this room from the lights that I have here. Here I am. See, I was getting water. There we go. Okay. I think I would like to get one more in. Because I think it would be useful. Okay, so I'm just gonna, I think I'm ready for this because I've got this, I've got the API here, and I don't need this. I got the key. I'm going to leave the key up. I wonder, I actually could even just sign up for a new key with a different email address, which I might do. Am I logged in? I want to just see if I'm logged in. No, I'm not. Okay, good. Okay, so app ID. Okay, so I'm going to do this. And I'm going to save as weather data. Okay. And let me clear this out. And go. All right, I think I'm getting ready here. Okay, here we go. This is exciting. I'm ready for this. Do I need the white? I don't know if I'm going to be using the whiteboard at all for this one. So I'm just going to stay over here. Okay, I'm going to drink a little more of this water. Thank you guys for participating in this with me. I have to say it's much more enjoyable doing these as a live stream than just recording them as things I'm going to upload. And let me leave this blank for right now. Okay. And hello. So this is an exciting moment because in this video, I'm scratching my ear. Also, I was like, this is an exciting moment. Okay. Hi. So this. I'm losing my mind. Okay. I'm gonna. It's also I can see myself on the screen, which is really distracting me. This is an exciting moment because in this video, I want to look at pulling data from an API and answer the question: what is an API? How do you sign up to use one? And how do you get data from it? And how do you visualize something or use that data in your own work? So let's just start in a weird sort of way from scratch. Obviously, I've kind of planned this somewhat in advance, but I'm going to open up my web browser here. And I'm going to go to Google. Don't look at that page. I'm going to go to Google, and I'm going to say I'm looking forward to hearing from you. I really am. By the way, this is sort of an interesting. This is totally no. I'm not going to get into a side about how they do this predictive stuff. I'm looking for weather data. Weather.com. No, let's see. I'm looking for open weather data. Oh, there we go. So in other words, you're most likely going to have to start searching on the internet to find the data you want, or your friend will tell you about some data. This is a nice API to use to start. Weather data, I think, is intuitive. It's easy to understand. Most of us are familiar with the weather, and it's sort of small chunks, and you can query it in different ways, weather for this city, weather for this day, that sort of thing. Historical weather data, current weather data. So there's a lot of parameters and ideas here, just packaged as a simple idea. At the same time, it's a little bit of a cliche to say, I'm going to make a project with weather data because it's kind of everybody's first example. That said, that's what I'm going to use. So let's say you found this thing called open weather map. And I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to see that, clearly there's weather here, data here, there's stuff being visualized, and what I'm looking for is something that says API. API stands for Application Programming Interface, meaning I am writing a program. Open Weather Map is a program. Their program's running on their server. My program is ultimately running on my server, whether that's just my laptop or some server that I'm going to upload my project to. And those two servers need to talk to each other. I could draw a diagram with like two circles and things talking to each other, but you get the idea. They need an interface by which to talk to each other. That's what an API is. It's a thing for computers to talk to each other rather than, really, human beings, the thing that's me and you, like we should really spend time talking to each other too. I think that would be. But hopefully computers talking to each other can help us talk to each other. I don't know. Think about that. And think about that as you make projects. But that's too much of an aside. Okay, so look, it's fall. You can see the nice changing colors and leaves. It's quite lovely. So how do you suddenly use this API? So the first thing you want to do is click on it. And you can see like, okay, well, there's some information here. For example, what if I want to get, let's say I want to get current weather data. And let me slide this over a little bit. I'm going to click on more. And looking here, I can see, there's like all this stuff. So here's the thing. Ultimately, the ease of using a particular API is as good as how easy it's going to be is how well documented it is. Are there examples? Is there a video of somebody telling you how to use it? A lot of APIs, and I'm going to show you this when we look at the New York Times or WordNick, have an online tool, like a form that you can like sort of play with and test out the API, which almost like writes the code for you in a weird sort of way. So these are types of things that you might use. But for us right now, I'm just going to kind of say like, oh, look at this. Examples of API calls, api.openweathermap.org/data/2.5 weather Q equals London. That's good enough for me right now. I'm happy to work with the weather data in London. So what I can do is I can copy this URL. I could actually just click on it, and I'm going to open a new tab, and I'm going to put it in there, and I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to be excited about getting my weather data. Shoot. So this is going to happen to you. Now, it used to be, Open Weather Map was actually one of the examples that are used to demonstrate because it actually didn't require an API key. It would give you the data anyway. But this is typically something that you're going to find. If a company or an organization or just some person is opening up their data, they want you to identify yourself when you're asking for the data. So you have to sign up for an account and get a special key. That way they can track how often are you accessing the data, what are you using the data for, and ultimately, this is a paid service. So we can use Open Weather Map for free, but if you built, I don't know what the thresholds are, but if you built an application that's like, has millions of users that are querying weather data, you're gonna have to pay a fee to Open Weather Map to have all of those queries. So we could go to this URL, which will give us more information about it, but ultimately what I'm gonna do is go back to here, and I'm gonna look for, sign up. So let's go to sign up, and I'm already signed in. Log out, log out. I'm going to enter in an email, Daniel. I'm going to sign up.schiffman.net, and I'm going to make up a password. Should I tell you what my password is? Wouldn't that be exciting? Porcupine. You can all use my. I don't know. Like, what happens to the internet if I just say what my password is? I'm going to hit submit. Invalid email or password. Okay. Unicorn 1234. Oh, you know what it is? I probably already signed up under this email address. This is terrible. This is riveting, I'm sure. Watch me try. Unicorn 1234. Remember me? Submit. Whatever. Okay, fine. That's such a fail. Oh, this is me signing into my account. No, I want to create an account. Oh boy. No wonder. Daniel@schiffman.net. Unicorn, oh no, that's I gotta confirm my email. This is terrible. Unicorn 123, Unicorn 123. I knew I should have just had this planned in advance. Create the account. I'm still here. Come on, account. Create. Can't be blank. I'm gonna edit this. I don't usually edit my videos, but I'm gonna edit this. And this is sort of weirdly entertaining. Unicorn 1234, create the account. There we go. So welcome, you've signed up successfully. And down here, you can see that I now have an API key. So the reason why I showed you is that this is actually pretty easy. Even though it took me like 10 tries, a lot of APIs will require you to try to jump through more hoops to sign up. But this is actually a fairly easy one. Just sign up, I put in your email, put in a password, I can put in my phone. Now I have this API key. So what I need to do is take this API key, hit copy, and come back here. And go back to this particular URL. Now, here's the thing. I've got something to talk to you about now. And what I've got to talk to you about is URL query strings. So look at this, api.openweathermap.org. This is the query, this is the URL of a particular, of the, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop. And I'm going to go back. And I'm going to just re-record like I'm signing up again, and I'll just stitch those two things together. I'm going to check the chat. Nobody's here anymore anyway. Even though that was kind of, I enjoyed like open weather map, and I'm going to open weather map, sign up, log out. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to restart from here because I realized, sorry, I'm touching the microphone. I realized another piece to this that I need to talk about, which I think would be useful. Okay. I thought for a moment this was going well, but nothing is perfect in life. Okay. I'll create an account. Okay. All right, here we go. Almost everybody's gone. It's 3:34. Okay. Okay, I had a short technical hiccup. Sorry, if I'm going to edit these, I can just. Okay, short technical hiccup. I was clicking the wrong button, but I'm here now to create an account. So I'm going to create an account under daniel.schiffman plus unicorn@gmail.com. By the way, interesting tidbit here, you can like make any extra characters in your email address and it's still the same as my regular email. And my password is unicorn because I like to see what happens if I just put my password on the internet, 1234, and I don't care if I remember me or not. I'm gonna hit submit. Oh, you know, it doesn't want to let me, I gotta start over. It doesn't want to let me do that. I used up all my email addresses. This is like the most ridiculous thing I've ever done in my life, is trying to create this like fake thing where I've now used up all my email addresses. You know what I'm just gonna do? I'm just gonna log into my account. What am I fighting with all this for? Sign into my account. That's gonna be much better. Okay. Hi, okay, I had a little technical hiccup there where I was trying to create a new account and I keep using the same email address that I already have. So I'm just gonna like log into my account that I made under Daniel at Schiffman. I was trying various things under Schiffman.net. And so I'm gonna log into the account. That's, sorry, wrong email address. Can't get this right. Log into, okay, I'm gonna start over. And actually I'm gonna just have this pre-typed in. Yeah, I cut the video out and starting fresh because I was trying to like create an account with an email address I already had. But so now I'm just gonna like log into my account. I'm gonna hit submit. Obviously you could sign, you'll have to create an account. I already had one. And you can see here the API key is there. So all I need to do now to actually make this API work is copy paste this API key. And now the question is, where do I put it? So, I was on this page. No. Shoot. I have to do this one more time. One more time. Ugh. I can't get the flow of this right. And I really have to leave soon too. Okay. So I had a technical hiccup because I was trying to do all sorts of crazy... Technical hiccup, I'm now going to log into my OpenWeatherMap account. You're going to have to create an account. I already had an account, I was trying to create an account with the same email address, so it's easier if I just sign into mine when I'm going to hit submit here. And once you create an account, you're going to see that you have an API key. An API key is like this sort of secret thing that identifies you, that you can use in your code to make the API query. So now I have to ask myself, if I copy paste this API key, where do I put it? Where do I put it? This is the path for querying OpenWeatherMap. How do I get the API key to be associated with that path? And this brings up a topic, I really do actually need the whiteboard, which relates to URL query strings. So when you're working with APIs, you typically need to not just say, give me all your weather. You need to say things like, give me all your weather in this city, on this day. Give me the high temperature, give me the low temperature. And then you also need to say, with this API key. How do you do that? So if you have some URL like openweather.map.org, a query string is a thing that comes at the end of the URL. Now there's different ways of formatting query strings, but the most common, or one of the more common ones that at least you're going to see with OpenWeatherMap, we'll see some other scenarios with this, is, starting with a question mark. So the question mark indicates, now I'm going to give this URL some parameters. Some parameters might be things like city equals London. So these are now, as almost everything is in programming, name-value pairs. City equals London. So this is saying, give me OpenWeatherMap at city equals London. You can see that's actually already in there. Now it's not city, it's Q equals London, because that's what OpenWeatherMap expects. Q, that's kind of like for query. Now, we need to have a second one. In addition to the city, I need to give it the API key. So multiple queries are strung together with an ampersand. So you can say something equals something, ampersand something else equals something, ampersand something else equals something. There's a few little gotchas here, like you can't use spaces and certain characters that aren't valid in URL, and there's ways around that through URL encoding and decoding, and hopefully I'll mention that or get into more specifics about that later. But this is essentially what we need to practice forming, and just forming it now to see that the API works, but then ultimately putting these kinds of query strings together dynamically in our code. Because what if the user types in the city, and then you get that from the user, and then you've got to insert what the user put into your API query. So over here, I can now add something. I can say, and I happen to know this in advance, app ID equals, and paste. And you can see now I have added into the query string Q equals London and app ID equals my special API key. And I hit enter, and look at that. I now have JSON data. Look, it worked. So this is data I can now load into my sketch and visualize based on the API. I can draw something based on the current weather in London, and I'll do that in a moment. But first I want to mention something. This is kind of, now we're getting this thing like, this is like JSON data, and the computers could have no problem reading it. But to me, this is actually quite hard to dig through looking at it. And I would really prefer if I had it nicely formatted with some spaces and some line breaks and some colors. And so one thing I recommend doing if you're going to work with data and APIs is installing a Chrome extension that will automatically format the JSON data for you as you're like, notice I haven't even written any code yet. I'm like 10 minutes into this video, just like as I'm starting to figure out how the API works, I'm just working in the browser. So there's a Chrome extension. I'm going to just Google Chrome extension JSON formatter. There's lots of them. This is one that I particularly like. It's the first one that came up. I'm going to say add to Chrome, and I'm going to say add extension. That's been added, and I'm going to close that, and I'll get a link to that below. Now I'm going to hit refresh. And you can see now this has actually been formatted. And you can see these buttons raw and parse. So I can see this is the raw data, and this is it parsed to look nicely. And what's really nice about this is I can sort of fold this up. So for example, I can see that what's actually here, this is the sort of root object that has these things in it. It's an object that has a coordinate, a weather, a base, a main, a wind, a clouds. I have to read through the documentation to see what all these things are. But for example, let's look under main. Like, So by the way, these are values, I think they're in Kelvin. So one thing I didn't specify is the unit of measurement, right? Maybe I want to get these in Celsius or in Fahrenheit. So let's actually take a minute. That's another thing that I need to add to this query string, right? I probably need to say something like Q equals London and app ID equals my query string and units equals imperial or metric or something like that. So if I go back to the, if I go back to the API, come back, and we look through the documentation, I probably, we can see here, like, I could kind of like poke through this and it's probably gonna give me some information, like it's by zip code. I'm looking, pause this video. Well, okay, actually, let's just be better about this. Parameters, min-max, format. Look at this, format, units format. Let's click on this. Units equal, there we go. So I can see here, here's some examples. Like, this is your life. Welcome to your life now if you want to do this stuff. Got to look through this stuff and figure it out. And I found that units equals metric. I assume that's going to give me the information in Celsius. Let's be metric today. I feel like being metric. So I can add to this particular URL. I can say and units equals metric. And I'm going to refresh the page. And you can see now I've got the temperature is 13.57 Celsius. So this is working better for us. So now I'm just back in that scenario. Like, let's say I want to draw something onto the screen based on the current temperature. So all I need to do now that I've worked this out in the browser, I have this particular URL. I can go into my code. I'm going to open up my P5 sketch now, and I can say load JSON, that long URL, got data, and now I'm going to do that thing where I write the function got data, and then just say print line data just to see that it works, or to discover that maybe what I need is JSON-P. Let's see if it works. It worked. So this is a case where I don't need JSON-P. If I didn't see anything down there, I'd probably add JSON-P. And now I might say something like var weather and say like when I get the data, weather equals data. And then here I might say if weather, now I can draw some stuff based on that weather. So let's pick something that I want to do. Let's say I want to draw one circle based on the temperature and one circle based on the humidity. It's my object.main.temp or my object.main.humidity. So I could say ellipse at 50, 100, and then weather.main.temp as the piece of data that's going to be the size of this particular ellipse. And then I'll draw another one that is just humidity, weather.main.humidity. And we can see now that, and let me put that at, let me make the canvas a little bit bigger and put this at 100 and put this at 300. And we can run this again and we can see, look at this. This particular circle is being drawn with the temperature, and that second circle is being drawn with the humidity. So again, I've done a completely trivial result. It's not particularly interesting. I'm only getting this exact piece of data from the weather in London. So I'm going to stop this video now because in the next video I want to look at how I might form a query string, how I might allow the user to type in a city and then show the weather back for that city, or click on a link or something like that. That's what I'll do in the next video. But for your exercise is sign up for Open Weather Map or another API, try to load that data, try to see if you need an API key, try to draw something based on that data. And if you can make it a bit more flexible, like maybe the API call happens multiple times for different cities. Try that might be a little bit tricky, but see what else you can sort of imagine and do with this basic idea. And hopefully this was helpful to you with the sort of very basics and beginning steps of starting to work with APIs. So thanks for watching. And I've got a lot more data and API videos that I intend to make. I've made a bunch today that you're seeing now, and if you're watching this in the future, you'll see the next ones. But if you're actually watching this right now, the next ones will be coming soon, probably next week. Okay, thanks very much, And I'm going to hit stop on record. Goodbye. All right, so I think I really am now done for today. There is only a metric. So thank you guys. I don't know if you have, I'm going to get going. This stream has now been going for 2 hours and 20 minutes. I'm going to get going and do some other things, like pick up small children from school and daycare. If you, I'm sort of going to wait for like 5 minutes. If anybody has any questions or feedback or comments, you know, I'm kind of open to like redoing some of these videos if there might be, to make them a little bit more tight or shorter. I might just upload them and keep going because there's a long list of what I'm planning to do next. Like, you know, I want to show, I guess the note here now is how to dynamically configure a query. And then I might look at WordNik or the New York Times. Working with images I think would be worth looking at. Then some of these other things on my list. So I got really up to, I guess I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 videos. They felt much longer than they should be, but I don't know what to do about that. Thanks. Okay, great. Yeah, you know, someone writes, I need a Firefox plugin to format JSON. I'm sure there is one. The reason why I use Chrome is not for any particular love or bias towards Chrome, but I'm so used to the console developer tools in Chrome, which I'm not really demonstrating in these videos, but it's just very helpful for me for developing and debugging. But certainly I don't see any reason why you shouldn't use Firefox, which, you know, there's Firebug, which is a developer tool for Firefox, and I should get used to more of these things. I'm so glad that this comment, you have made JSON much less mysterious and less frightening to me. That was the point of this. So if I did that, then I feel like it was somewhat successful. Thanks. All right, so I'm going to say goodbye to this live stream. So this whole live stream, it gets archived within like 15 minutes to a half an hour by YouTube. And so far I haven't deleted any of them because I haven't found them to be too embarrassing. And I have that one video now that I feel like I need to stitch together from 2 parts. I think I only did that once, which is unfortunate. But I'll probably get to uploading these, you know, it'll take me later today and tomorrow and over the weekend. Oh, one thing I'll mention, there's like only 8 of you here watching, but I'm looking for somebody, I'm thinking about hiring somebody to, I noticed there's a feature on YouTube that I can add somebody as a manager. I feel like the videos need better descriptions, more links to things that are in the videos. There's like annotation features that link back and forth between the videos. I'd love to get some help doing that. Also like closed captioning the videos, although I can pay a service online to do that. So I'm looking for help with that, and I'm very happy to pay somebody hourly. Someone with sort of facility with YouTube or good ideas for how to do this, and maybe with some writing skills. So if you know anyone, send me an email or contact me. Let me know, because I'm kind of interested in that. Okay, and I'm going to turn off this stream. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys soon. So I'll definitely do this next Thursday. I'm doing this every Thursday. So hopefully, I prefer doing it in the morning, but today I had a meeting, so the next one will be next Thursday, unless I might do a surprise one if I can find some time to do this, just make another video sooner than that.